People probably would think that I'm one of the most confident people in the world. Now I am. But there were years that I wasn't. When your friends have restrooms and you don't, it's a shameful thing because they don't want to come back. I'm a teenager and he slapped me and took my house coat belt off and started choking me. And I said, well, I better stop fighting with this fool before he choked me to death. We all will have bad things that happen to us in life. Nobody is in a perfect situation. But if you believe, it will be better. In time, it will. It's so many things in life that I know. And so I can speak into the hearts of people that's broken, and I can tell them that, baby, no matter how broken you think you are, you can live through it. I'm Angela Washington, and this is my journey.
I know there's been a lot of speculation about my retirement and what I plan on doing next. And you know, throughout my life, I faced many obstacles. The road has not always been clear. During those tough times, I felt alone. But I prayed and I asked God for strength. In my turmoil, God reached out to me and it revealed whatever I was going through was a part of my true destiny. It was at that moment I made a decision to stop getting in the way of God's plans, because my true story of my destination was my journey.
Angela Washington is a published poet and motivational speaker who has expressed pieces of her life to encourage those who have dealt with sexual assault, domestic violence, and many other terrible situations. Finding strength through her spiritual beliefs, Angela shares her story to let any listener know that they're not alone.
What makes my journey unique is I experienced many things in life that would have made somebody else lose their mind. But my journey was supposed to be tough, and it was supposed to be painful. It was supposed to include some of the worst things that would happen to any one person. But I lived through it. And all that pain gave me passion. It created words of rhyme because I write poetry. It gave me a forum I can speak to so many people's lives. Someone that had incest, I can tell you, I was molested by my cousin at 9. If someone that had to deal with a mom's boyfriend that was trying to attack them at the house, I've experienced that. If you want to talk about someone that experienced depression in the household, I know this story already. If you want to talk about being lonely and never feeling loved, I know that too. You can be surrounded by I don't know how many people and never still be loved and lonely. I was born in Vidalia, Georgia. I grew up with my dad's parents in Fairfield, Florida, with the chickens, the cows, some ants that I played with. My dad was a good man, and my mother was a young woman. They were 10 years apart in age. He was a very settled thinker, but my mom liked it to drink and party and be with other men. My dad didn't want that for me. So he took me to his parents to raise me because they were stationary people, and they had my cousin Joanne, which was the oldest child of his brother, there as well. I knew I had parents that were where children were, and I would see them usually Christmas, my birthday, which is a few days before Christmas, Easter, and the summer. We lived in the country. We had no car, no horse, no mule, and I joined this church 30 miles away from where we lived because it just drew me in. I got caught up in everything about this ministry. It taught me to read the word. It taught me what was backsliding. No longer could I be where I was anymore. I was maturing in a spiritual way, a way that just kind of took over my life. My friends were not in the holiness church. My family was not either. I was very different from everyone I knew in my family, and that was closest to me besides this family. But it was meant for me to do that.
At a young age, Angela took on many duties around her church, but having those responsibilities kept her away from the one thing she wanted.
Sometimes you are in a place in life that you didn't choose it, it chose you. and it chose me. After being in the church, the pastor said God led him to ordain me as a missionary at 12. I was a usher in the church. I played the drums in the church. I was in the choir as well. But after being ordained, I spoke at my church. They had me in the newspaper. I spoke at other churches. I was out of town in Dade City. I spoke just like the men did. And I had just a different sense of self as a missionary. But at the age of 13 and a half, I wanted to be a teenager. And so I gave my license back because I didn't want to be a backslider. Being in the country with my grandmother, it was safe, but it was lonely. When I did have friends that come over and they said, well, Angie, I need to use your restroom. I said, well, just come on to the back porch and just use it if you got to do the number one. If you got to do the number two, you got to go to the outhouse. When your friends have restrooms and you don't, it's a shameful thing because they don't want to come back. I knew what it was to walk down that dirt road to go to the mailbox, and I got to go like 5 miles to get the mail. When my dad would call and he would tell my cousin that he was going to call on a certain day, and I'm excited to go and walk, but then I'm sad because I don't know when I'm going to talk to him again. When I did visit my dad, and I got 2 natural sisters and then 6 stepsisters and brothers with them, and I go visit them, and there's 8 kids in this house. But I don't stay there with them. And I remember when I came back once, and I slept in the room with my grandmother, I scratched the paint off the wall because I knew what it was to be alone, just me and my grandmother. And so I would visit my mom, and she lived in a big city. Mama had an inside toilet. We had the outhouse where I lived. It was a laundromat across the street from where my mom stayed. I had to do the laundry at the tub and get the water from the well where I stayed. It was a whole lot of things that made me want to be somewhere else. There were kids everywhere. I could go to concerts. I can get my hair done every 2 weeks. I can get the latest clothes with my mom. She was a beautiful woman. A lot of excitement. We got music to play. I played 1 secular record at our house, and my grandmother said, you're not playing that here. But my mom, I could play what I wanted because she listened to secular music. I always wanted to be with one of my parents, always. And my dad had 8 kids in his household, but he was married to another person. My mother had no children in her household. And so when I came to stay with her that last summer to visit, I said, Mama, can I stay? She said, yes, you can. And so she put me in school. And when I came back that summer, like I normally would, to stay, I told Grandmama, I said, Grandma, I'm staying with Mama now. I'm gonna see you sometimes. And she was upset. She said, you don't have to come back. I took it for what she said, but she didn't mean it because they got a lawyer and tried to get me back. But my mom got a lawyer and kept me.
Moving into a new home within a new city, Angela would soon come to realize a side of her mother that she had never seen before. A side that would expose her to a new way of looking at her own life.
In Jacksonville, I started school in 9th grade. Staying there was a beautiful thing. I got all the modern day things there. But I didn't know how broken my mom was because she shot herself in front of me right after I turned 14 during the Easter break in our store. I didn't know what depression was. I never heard of suicide. It was kind of hard to deal with, you know, to kind of be the mom mentally in some ways, even though she was grown and she had a boyfriend. They argued, they fought all the time. I would call the police, and sometimes I would say I called them, and sometimes I wouldn't because I would be afraid of how mad they would be, asking me why did I call. You can see the beauty on the outside, but you just can't see the brokenness on the inside. And I'm there and I'm thinking, when she gets sick and she go in the hospital, I got to deal with this man trying to touch me. I got to hear him say certain things to me. I don't always win the fight when I'm there, me and him. And he pushes me down and he says things to me and he puts his hands in my clothes. It's not pleasant to live with, but I lived through it. When she was suicidal, I couldn't understand why my mom wanted to die. I remember when I saw her in the hospital when she had shot herself, and I'm thinking with a child's mind, I wanted to be with one of my parents all this time. And I said, Mama, what about me? Because I thought your mother should always love you, and I always want to be with you. And I was still alone.
While facing the horrors within her mother's household, Angela was in need of comfort and decided to search for it outside of the home.
My mom was busy living life. We had card games at the house that people won money. And so while she's back there, I got my boyfriend and I'm up front. And I have the liberty to do things I thought I was grown enough to do. And I got pregnant with my daughter. And I didn't tell her right then, but you know, you can tell when you gain a little weight here, you gain a little weight there. And I had my daughter, and that was beautiful. And I continued to go to school. She kept her while I was at school. But my daughter had turned 1. I graduated high school. And we went to the store across the street from my store, and we took a picture. And she said, Angie, you're grown now. You can make it on your own. I heard her, but I didn't comprehend. 5 days later, I get off work, and I come to the store, and I see both our cars are gone, the Pontiac and the Cadillac. So I asked my uncle, I said, where's Mom? And he said, well, she's at the doctor's office. I'm like, all right. She was always sick. And I asked where my stepdad, and he began to tell me the story of them arguing. And she stabbed him in the store. And so one is at one hospital, and one is at the other hospital across the street. So I walk as fast as I can, and I'm trying to maintain as I walk up Jefferson Street. And I get in there, and I see her in the ER, and she's just crying. And I'm trying to be calm. And she said, Angie, I know he's gone. So sure enough, he had died. And they arrested her. And so when I go back to the house, I got to pay all the bills. I got to see about my daughter myself. I got to fix it some way that I help get my mom out. And so now I am a real adult. And I'm learning this thing step by step. I couldn't really comprehend everything, because how can you comprehend being the adult all the way when you never had to pay the bills? But now I have to pay the bills. I visited her at the women's holding facility for 3 weeks. I couldn't understand. I mean, they taking my shoes off, they pat me down, and there with her and all these other women in these rooms, and I talked with her. But we bailed her out 3 weeks later, and she would sit there, and she would sit in front of the stereo, and she would drink and cry and drink and cry, and I'm looking at her. And I just don't understand what she's going through. They charged her with murder. She wanted for self-defense. But I'm forever the adult now, because she's always broken from then on. 2 months later, I'm going to work. I'm standing at the bus stop. I saw Mom and her boyfriend pass me. I accepted a ride from somebody at the bus stop. They said, you going to Gateway? I'm like, yeah. They said, come on, I'll give you a ride. I never made it to the job. What I made is some turns, and with a screwdriver in my throat, and this man threatened me if I didn't go along with the program. I remember I had my blue leotard top and my blue shorts and the flip-flops very well, because when the police cut up my garments and gave them back to me in ribbons, I remember the outfit. I remember thinking, am I going to live through this situation? When I lifted my head up after laying down in that front seat. And he said, if you move, I'm gonna kill you. I remember all of that. I remember when he finished and he rolled down the street and took me near my house, but not where he picked me up, and dropped me off in front of a wooden white church and said he was sorry. I remember I felt sorry for him. And I looked at that tag and I rehearsed that tag in my head all the way down the street. When a lady said, baby, you got blood on your clothes, I'm walking, thinking of this number in my head as I'm walking home. And I washed and I put my clothes in a bag. And I see my mom as I walk out the door to walk to the police department. And she said, I thought you was going to work. And I tell her, she said, oh, you don't walk down there, Angie. You called them. So I can't remember if I called them or she called them, but I did the rape kit. And I'm numb because I got to lay there while they swab and this and that. And then I give them the information and I ID this guy from a lineup because he assaulted another person a month before, but she dropped the charges. So I know how it feels to be completely violated in every which way possible. My first relationship was a tone setter for me. My daughter's dad and I started dating in 9th grade when I moved to Jacksonville. Something my grandmother would have never let happen. But I'm there, I'm dating this guy. And I remember we was having some kind of disagreement. This man just started slapping me upside my head in my own house. I'm a teenager. And he slapped me and took my house coat belt off and started choking me. And I said, well, I better stop fighting with this fool before he choked me to death. And he stopped. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror, the bruises. And I said, I've seen this on TV. We broke up in time. It was hard getting rid of him. But I distanced myself emotionally at times. I was in relationships I knew wasn't gonna work, just for sexual satisfaction. I opened myself to companions, but with my daughter's dad, my first boyfriend, being aggressive and abusive, I met the next boyfriend that was very jealous. He wasn't abusive, but he was extremely annoying. And when he told me, he said, Angie, if I drive off a cliff or shoot myself in the head, I'd never hurt you. Well, that was my key to leave. So I left all my furniture in Orlando. I had moved to Orlando when I was 19. Quit my job, got the money out the bank, and I was gone. So when I did give my all in all, it was like a brick wall. I dated people I should not have dated. I had a relationship with a married man. I knew that wasn't gonna work. But it was just something to do. There were times when I was in a relationship, I really cared for this person. But I've made myself busy and never gave them all my time because I put my mom ahead of a lot of relationships because she was a woman that suffered from depression and she needed someone to look after her. I felt like I was her caregiver. I did a lot of things for other people in the family. And I think if I would have had a different beginning, I probably would be married right now and completely happy. But I just didn't allow myself to have that. At times when I said, okay, I'm gonna try this, and I got engaged, they married other people. They broke up with me and married other women.
Struggling from one relationship to the next, Angela was convinced to protect herself, not only from her experiences, but also based off of what she witnessed from her mother's relationships.
As an adult woman, I felt like at times I couldn't trust any man. When I looked at her, I saw she was a beautiful person. She got everything. Men did a lot of stuff for her, but she fought with them. So in my mind, I don't want you to give me everything because I might have to fight with you later. I don't want you to do everything for me because I might have to argue with you later. So I rejected a lot of things that men tried to give me. I felt like I got my daughter. I don't have time for you at times. And I never gave any man 100% of my time. I said I was busy. I needed education. I had to take care of my daughter. Any excuse. I gave them 80%, maybe 70%, maybe even 10%. But I never gave them all of me. From my mom being a broken woman, I saw about her. She stayed with me for years. But she helped me with my children while I was working and going to college. She was not a good mother. She was a really good grandmother. When my daughter was getting ready to graduate high school and go into the military, my mom finally got her own place. And then it was just me and my son. And I got to just kind of cut the strings a little bit. That was good. But before then, she had some brothers that one had a crack problem, one had a drinking problem, and they stayed with me too. So I'm the caregiver to the uncles. My mom had some cousins come through, but when she got her own place, I kind of get away from that. My job gave me a promotion to Tennessee, and so I'm away from family and friends. It was a sense of freedom. I'm kind of finding who Angie is now. I'm working and I'm busy. But then my son came to Atlanta every summer, and his dad abused and choked him, and I had to come get him. And when I saw my son with bruises in his eyes and on his cheeks, well, I had to put Angie on the back burner. And I quit my job and I went to Florida and I put him in counseling. And it was some hard years to see your child broken. I went to college and I hid behind my education. And then my dad, sister, stepmom, and nephew were killed in a car wreck. And now I know the true definition of grief. I get there and my legs stop moving when it's time to go in for the funeral. They have it at the school because none of the churches were big enough. I finished my education and I had peace of mind in Tennessee, so I go back. Now I'm finding who Angela really is, but I'm in my 40s when I find out. I found out that some things I just don't want to tolerate, but I'm still kind of hiding because I'm being busy. When I find myself, I'm at the lowest point. I get sick and I have to have surgery. And I have 13 hours of benefit time. The young man I had been seeing at church, he breaks up with me in a text. And that hurt. And I have surgery. And I'm at the hospital and I'm hurting everywhere possible. I had excessive bleeding afterwards. I got shingles afterwards. I got an infection afterwards. But sometimes the Lord has to sit you down so He can talk to you. He had to put me in my worst place, the greatest pain I had ever felt, so I could really see myself and my life. And I did. And reality is facing me as I lay in this bed day in and day out. And I see kind of like a rolling film of my life in my head, of the people I've looked after and the things I can't do for myself now. And so I learned then that I can't do you now because I can't even do me. Don't call me because I can't do nothing for you. And I think of the relationships I've had, the choices I made. And God is telling me that you wouldn't let this situation go, so I moved it for you. Because you said you want to be the best Christian you can be. So I'm going to move this man out your life because it was an ungodly relationship. I wasn't trying to be super mom, super neighbor, super anything for anybody because I couldn't do nothing for me. And I learned that Angie needs Angie. Angie needs to look out for her. She needs to do some things to make her happy. And when I got up off that bed, I said, I don't care if I live to see tomorrow. I'm going to enjoy today.
After dealing with so many obstacles throughout her life, Angela managed to find herself, and within herself, she found peace.
People probably would think that I'm one of the most confident people in the world. Now I am. But there were years that I wasn't. They thought I was beautiful, pretty, sexy. I just put on clothes and I'm just trying to make it from day to day. I didn't see myself the way they saw me. Now, I see myself as not just a survivor, a person that was supposed to survive to have a story. I speak at all women's functions that people ask me to speak to because they know my story, they know my personality. They know I'll make time if I got it. If I don't, I'll try to move some things around so I can help you get your message across. No matter what you're trying to do, if it's something positive and if I can't help you. If you want me to stand at the door and pass out tickets, I'll be there. It's so many things in life that I know that when God gave me the gift to write poetry, I can tell my story, which is any and everybody's story, that rhymes. And then He gave me a forum to speak. And so I can speak into the hearts of people that's broken, and I can tell them that, baby, no matter how broken you think you are, you can live through it, because I did. And I can tell them point blank, I went through this, this, and this, and I'm still smiling. I'm still standing, and I'm not broken, and you're not either.
Angela now uses her time to speak at many events and uses her story to encourage others like her. She also shares her passion by expressing her life through the art of poetry.
There's so many things in life that's bitter. And God gave me this poem, When Life Gave Me Lemons. When life gave me lemons, I perfected lemonade. My faith made me strong when others were afraid. I lived in the moment. It was a moment God had made. When life gave me lemons, I perfected lemonade. We all will have bad things that happen to us in life. Nobody is in a perfect situation. But if you believe, it will be better. In time, it will. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be next month. It may be a year from now. But if you believe, it will be better. But you can't just believe. You got to make some choices. What didn't work yesterday, if you have a choice, don't do the same thing, because it's going to mess up tomorrow. You got to make choices and move on. You can't worry about yesterday, because I can't change nothing I did wrong. Every person I dated wrong, I can't change it. Every choice I did wrong, I can't change it. So I don't stress about that. What I think about is today, I'm going to laugh and smile. I'm going to try to help somebody else, and I'm going to help myself too. And tomorrow, I'll make plans for tomorrow. But if I don't see it, I ain't stressing about it.